What if nothing in your life has ever been random? What if the accidents, the coincidences, the uncanny timings that you once dismissed as chance were never accidents at all, but fragments of a deeper code stitched through reality itself? The story you were given from childhood taught you otherwise. You were told the world is a machine, indifferent, governed by blind forces of probability, that your life is a scatter of events in an impersonal universe. You were trained to believe that a text arriving just as you thought a friend was nothing but probability, that a sudden change of direction that saved you from disaster was mere luck, that opportunities arriving at the precise moment you needed them were tricks of perception. But beneath that narrative lives another truth, hidden, suppressed, and fiercely guarded. Every so-called coincidence is the fingerprint of a living intelligence. Every meaningful convergence is a signal. Every improbable event is a message addressed to you. For thousands of years, those who understood this truth worked to keep it away from you. They knew that once you saw through the veil of randomness, you would no longer be controllable. Because when you recognize synchronicity, the hidden order behind apparent chaos, you become dangerous to any system that feeds on passivity and fear. Imagine walking through life believing you are a victim of chance. You drift, waiting for outcomes to be granted or denied by external forces. You consume what you are told to consume. You obey the scripts written for you. You measure your life by statistics, probabilities, and odds. Now imagine waking up from that dream. Imagine realizing that the universe is not a machine, but a mirror. That every person, every encounter, every accident is a reflection of the patterns of your own consciousness. You stop being passive. You stop waiting. You begin to see the choreography of reality itself bending around your inner state. This is the point where control ends. Because control requires you to forget your power. Control requires you to trust external authority. Control requires you to look away from the mysterious signals constantly flashing at the edges of your perception. The education system that drills certainty into you, the media that floods you with noise, the scientific establishment that insists on material explanations, all of them together reinforce the same story. Life is random. Coincidences are meaningless. Your experiences are disconnected. This is the great lie. The lie that allows you to be shaped into a compliant consumer, a predictable worker, a manageable citizen. But somewhere in you, there has always been a quiet resistance, a memory that surfaces whenever the improbable touches your life. That phone call at the very moment you thought of the person. That uncanny encounter with someone who altered your path. That dream that later unfolded in waking life. You felt the tingle of recognition, the whisper that reality is not as flat as they told you. For a moment, you tasted the deeper intelligence of existence. Carl Jung gave it a name, synchronicity. He called them meaningful coincidences, events without causal connection that nonetheless speak directly to your inner world. Jung noticed that they do not obey the laws of linear cause and effect. They carry another logic, one rooted in meaning rather than mechanism. In his private notes, he admitted something even more unsettling. These coincidences operate with mathematical precision. There is a hidden architecture behind them. He suspected, though never declared in public, that synchronicities reveal the separation between mind and matter is an illusion. And if mind and matter are not separate, if thought and world are entangled in one seamless fabric, then everything changes. The ground beneath modern science, with its boundaries and partitions, dissolves. The material universe ceases to be independent of the consciousness that observes it, what Jung only hinted at. Others began to explore more radically. They understood synchronicity not as rare anomalies, but as the underlying operating system of existence itself. The universe, far from being mute, is in constant dialogue with you. Through symbols, through timings, through convergences too precise to dismiss, it is speaking, guiding, arranging. Why were you never taught this? Because to know it is to reclaim the ability to navigate reality without permission. You were systematically trained to filter it out. From birth, you were taught to trust only what could be measured, weighed, calculated. You were trained to call intuition superstition, to call mystery coincidence, to call resonance imagination. This training was not accidental. It was deliberate. A society of people awake to synchronicity would not be manageable. They would not look outside themselves for validation. They would not need permission to trust their inner compass. They would no longer be seduced by the illusion of scarcity, fear, and division. The truth is that you have never been a passive observer. You have always been a participant in the weaving of reality. Every event is a reflection of your internal state. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your energy. Life does not happen to you. It happens through you. This is why synchronicity is dangerous knowledge. It destroys the narrative of helplessness. It reveals that every obstacle is not an accident but a reflection, that every breakthrough is not luck but alignment, that every encounter is precise, that nothing in your life has ever been random. The moment you begin to see it, patterns appear everywhere. The veil thins. You realize the uncanny moments that shaped your life were not outliers but the rule. The universe speaks continuously, not in human words, but in symbols, alignments, and mirrored events. Those who benefit from your disconnection fear this awakening, because the moment you understand synchronicity, fear loses its grip, scarcity loses its grip, division loses its grip. You become untouchable to propaganda. You are no longer moved by manipulation. You were taught that consciousness is an accident of brain chemistry, a flicker in a cold machine. But synchronicity reveals that consciousness is a field itself. It is not trapped in your skull. It is not secondary to matter. It is the very fabric of existence, woven into every pattern you witness. Synchronicities are the cracks in the illusion, the flashes where the unity of mind and matter breaks through. From the first breath you took, you have been immersed in this ocean of signals. Every so-called accident, every twist of timing, every unlikely event has been an expression of it. You may not have recognized them because you were told not to, but they were there, guiding you, protecting you, nudging you toward possibilities that logic could never predict. You were never alone in a meaningless world. You have always been inside a living conversation. And the question now, as this veil begins to lift, is simple. Will you keep calling it coincidence, or will you finally learn to listen? Long before modern science denied it, long before Carl Jung named it, entire civilizations lived by synchronicity as if it were the most obvious truth. They did not question whether the universe spoke. They learned its language. They built cultures, technologies, and philosophies around the recognition that every moment carries meaning, that every encounter holds a message, that existence itself is a web of connections vibrating in perfect resonance. The ancient Chinese preserved this awareness in the I Ching, the Book of Changes. To the uninitiated, it looked like a fortune-telling device, an archaic ritual of coins and hexagrams. But beneath the surface, it was a precise instrument for reading the quality of the present moment. Each configuration of lines was not a prediction, but a snapshot of the energetic texture of time itself. The I Ching taught that time is not empty, not neutral, but dense with significance, each instant saturated with currents of possibility. When one consulted the I Ching, one was not seeking to peer into the future, but to recognize the pattern flowing through now. This was not mysticism. It was a science of meaning. The ancients knew that synchronicity is not the exception but a rule, that every moment is a holographic node in a vast network, echoing and resonating with others. The modern mind, trained to dismiss coincidence, cannot comprehend that time is texture. But the scholars of ancient China knew the moment you choose to act is as important as the action itself. Synchronicity was navigation, a way of steering consciousness through the rivers of fate. In Egypt, the wisdom took another form. The hieroglyphic system was more than a written script. Each symbol was a multidimensional key, designed to trigger awareness in the one who encountered it. To carve a hieroglyph was not simply to inscribe a word. It was to place a holographic program into stone, capable of awakening consciousness across centuries. Egyptian initiates learned to see the messages written not only on temple walls but in the flow of daily life. A bird crossing the path, a particular alignment of stars, a dream repeating itself. Each was read with the same precision as a mathematician reads equations. Synchronicity was their science of the soul. Consider what it meant to live in a world where reality itself was a symbolic system. Nothing was random. Every pattern of feathers, every ripple in water, every arrangement of clouds could be read. The Egyptians saw their world as a mirror of consciousness, each detail a glyph written by the universe itself. To them, Synchronicity was not anomaly but structure, a constant dialogue between seen and unseen. And then there were the Indian sages, who went further still. In the Vedantic philosophy, separation itself was illusion. They called it Maya, the great veil that convinces you of disconnected things, isolated events, independent objects. Behind the veil was only Brahman, the indivisible field of consciousness. What we perceive as cause and effect, as one thing leading to another, is simply the surface play of a deeper unity. Synchronicity is not strange in this view. It is a natural glimpse of truth, the dissolving of illusion for a moment, the lifting of Maya to reveal the indivisible whole. For the shamanic traditions of the Americas, synchronicity was the air they breathed. To them, the world was alive, animate, communicative. Stones, rivers, animals, winds, all were voices in an ongoing conversation. To see a hawk circling overhead at the precise moment of decision was not random, but guidance. To meet a snake on the path after a dream of shedding skin was confirmation of transformation. Shamans lived inside a participatory universe where inner states and outer events were woven into one seamless fabric. They did not separate psychology from cosmology, self from world. Reality was relational, interactive, synchronistic. Across continents, the message was the same. Reality is not mute. Reality is not random. It speaks continuously, in patterns, in echoes, in alignments that defy probability but carry unmistakable meaning. So why does modern humanity, with all its technology and knowledge, live as if deaf to this truth? Why did cultures that understood the language of synchronicity vanish, their wisdom erased or dismissed as superstition? The destruction of the Library of Alexandria was not simply the loss of books. It was the erasure of millennia of accumulated understanding of consciousness, synchronicity, and the technologies of meaning. Scrolls and texts documenting practical methods for conscious navigation of reality, records of synchronicity-based sciences, entire systems of symbolic knowledge were annihilated. The fire that consumed those shelves was also a fire of forgetting, a severing of humanity from its own memory. What survived came in fragments, whispered teachings, fragments of text, symbols half decoded, enough to hint at the magnitude of what was lost, but not enough to fully restore it. The thread of knowledge was deliberately cut, because a species that knows synchronicity is a species that cannot be ruled. Imagine a civilization where everyone understood that every event is feedback from the universe. Imagine citizens who knew that oppression itself would manifest as a synchronistic reflection of internal imbalance, who trusted their inner guidance more than decrees from authority, who read the world as a living oracle. How could such people be enslaved? How could they be persuaded to live against their nature? This is why the wisdom of synchronicity was buried. The cover-up is one of the most successful in human history, to convince humanity that what it sees with its own eyes, meaningful coincidences, patterns too precise to ignore, is not real. To make people doubt their own experiences, dismiss their own intuition, and trade the living mystery for the sterile machinery of chance. Yet beneath this oppression, the wisdom persists. The I Ching still speaks. The hieroglyphs still vibrate with encoded meaning. The Vedantic texts still whisper that separation is illusion. Shamans still walk between worlds, still interpret the language of signs and animals. The ancient codes are not gone. They are waiting for recognition. And the recognition is not intellectual. It is experiential. It begins the moment you pay attention. The moment you notice the dream that bleeds into waking, the number that repeats, the stranger who says the phrase you needed to hear. That is when the ancient language returns and the hidden network reveals itself again. You live in a world that tells you meaning is subjective, that patterns are projected by your imagination, that connections are tricks of perception. But the ancients tell you otherwise. They tell you meaning is woven into the fabric of existence. They tell you patterns are objective reflections of deeper order. They tell you connections are real, not imagined. Synchronicity is the forgotten technology. It is the original navigation system. It is the bridge between human consciousness and cosmic intelligence. And every civilization that thrived in alignment with it left behind echoes, fragments of codes that still vibrate, waiting to be decoded once more. Look back at the ruins of temples, at the fragments of glyphs, at the rituals half preserved. Do not see superstition. See a science that we have forgotten. See a language we are learning to hear again. The ancients knew what we are only beginning to remember. That nothing in your life has ever been random. That every moment is a message. That the universe is alive, intelligent, and speaking through every so-called coincidence. The ancient codes lay buried, scattered among fragments of temples and half-burned scrolls. But the truth of synchronicity could never be extinguished entirely. From time to time, it resurfaced, finding voices willing to speak it again. In the 20th century, one of those voices belonged to Carl Gustav Jung. Jung was not a mystic in the sense of cloaked initiations or desert temples. He was a man of science, a psychologist who studied dreams, archetypes, and the unconscious. Yet in his encounters with patients, in his own experiences, he found himself facing phenomena that shattered the conventional boundaries of psychology. He observed that certain coincidences carried a quality that could not be explained away as chance. They were precise, meaningful, and timed with an uncanny exactness that revealed a hidden design. He told the story of a woman describing a dream of a golden scarab. As she spoke, a tapping came at the window of his consulting room. Jung opened it, and in flew a scarabaeid beetle, an insect not native to the region, arriving at the exact moment the dream was being recounted. For Jung, this was no ordinary coincidence. It was a message, an event in the external world synchronized perfectly with the inner world of the dream. Jung gave this phenomenon a name, synchronicity. He defined it as an acausal connecting principle, events linked not by mechanical cause and effect, but by meaning. It was a radical proposal. Western science had built its empire on the idea that nothing happens without a physical cause. Yet here was Jung suggesting that there exists another kind of order, one that links inner and outer worlds through significance rather than mechanics. But Jung's public writings were only the surface. In his private notes, he admitted to something far more unsettling. He wrote that meaningful coincidences operate with mathematical precision. He recognized patterns too exact to be dismissed as accidents. Though he refrained from declaring it openly, Jung suspected that synchronicities pointed to a reality in which mind and matter were not separate at all. The barrier between them, he intuited, was illusion. This was a thought too dangerous for his time. To announce that consciousness and matter are inseparable would have undermined the very foundation of Western science. It would have challenged a worldview that insists on objective reality, detached from the observer. Jung only hinted, but the implications were clear. If synchronicity is real, then the universe is participatory. The psyche and the world are entangled. Consciousness is not an isolated flame, but part of the fire that burns through everything. Consider what this means. If mind and matter are not separate, then every thought, every emotion, every dream has its echo in the physical world. And every external event is also an echo of an inner state. Life becomes a mirror, reflecting your own consciousness back to you through the tapestry of events. What appears random is in fact feedback. What seems accidental is precise resonance. Jung studied this not as philosophy, but as lived reality. He recorded patterns of synchronicity, traced them through myths, archetypes, and patient experiences. He saw that synchronicities often arrived at moments of psychological transformation, thresholds, crises, breakthroughs. They appeared when the conscious and unconscious needed to align, when guidance was required, when the psyche demanded recognition of its connection to the cosmos. Yet, Jung himself admitted that he had only scratched the surface. He glimpsed the depth, but could not dive fully into it. He suspected synchronicity was not a rare anomaly, but the very architecture of reality itself. Still, the structures of his time constrained him. He lived in an age that worshiped causality and measurement. To go further would have been to sever himself from the scientific community entirely. But the door he opened could not be closed. His naming of synchronicity legitimized what humans across cultures had always known. That meaning itself is a force, that connections invisible to the rational mind are nonetheless real, that the universe is not silent but expressive, and the implications stretch far beyond psychology. Because if synchronicity reveals that mind and matter are intertwined, then science itself must be rewritten. The materialist worldview collapses. The story that consciousness is a byproduct of brain chemistry dissolves. Reality becomes participatory, holographic, woven of meaning and resonance. This is the knowledge hidden behind the narrative of randomness. If you can be convinced that life is accidental, that coincidences are meaningless, you become passive, dependent, compliant. But if you see through it, if you recognize that synchronicities are messages, that your inner state is mirrored in your external world, you awaken as a creator. You stop being the victim of circumstance and realize you are shaping reality itself. Imagine what this does to power structures. A person who sees synchronicity cannot be manipulated by fear, because they know fear only attracts more fearful experiences. They cannot be lured by scarcity, because they know scarcity is an internal pattern reflected outward. They cannot be divided against others, because they recognize that every relationship is synchronistic, a mirror of consciousness. Such a person becomes immune to the mechanisms of control. Jung, perhaps more than he admitted, understood the revolutionary implications. Synchronicity is not intellectual curiosity. It is liberation. It is a return of power to the individual. It reveals that the universe is not a cold mechanism, but a responsive field. It shows that you are not separate from the cosmos, but entangled with it in every moment. And beyond Jung, others began to sense the same truth. As physics delved into quantum, as experiments revealed the strange entanglement of particles, the scientific language began to echo what Jung intuited. Observation itself altered outcomes. Distance did not prevent instantaneous connection. Reality behaved as though it were one seamless whole. Synchronicity and quantum physics whisper the same message. Separation is illusion. But while physics cloaked this truth in equations and experiments, Jung spoke to the human heart. He pointed to the scarab at the window, the dream that becomes real, the uncanny alignment of inner and outer worlds. He reminded us of what we have always known, what ancient civilizations never forgot. That meaning is not something we impose on a mute world. Meaning is the fabric of reality itself. The scarab that taps on your window is not chance. The dream that becomes reality is not imagination. The friend who calls the moment you think of them is not luck. These are synchronicities, the signs of a universe alive, intelligent, and speaking to you. And to recognize them is to begin to awaken, to see the scarab and understand, to hear the whisper in the timing of events, to realize that the world around you is not random but resonant, that your consciousness is not isolated but woven into the field. Jung named it, hinted at its depth, and left us standing at the threshold. The rest of the journey, to recognize synchronicity as the very operating system of reality, belongs to us. What Jung intuited in symbols and archetypes, modern science began to glimpse through experiments that fractured its own foundations. At the quantum scale, particles behaved in ways that mocked the classical story of cause and effect. They flickered between possibilities until observed, as though waiting for consciousness to decide. They remained mysteriously connected across vast distances, as though the universe itself refused separation. The double-slit experiment revealed the impossible. Matter is not solid until someone looks. Particles arrange themselves differently when observed, as if awareness itself collapses probability into reality. This discovery was not poetic metaphor, but empirical fact. Observation changes the world. Consciousness is not passive. It participates. And if consciousness can shape subatomic particles, then it must also shape the larger patterns we call life. Synchronicity emerges as a natural extension of quantum truth. The inner state of awareness is inseparable from the outer unfolding of events. The psyche and the world are threads in the same weave, entangled not by mechanical causation, but by resonance. It was here that the work of Jacobo Grinberg arose, a Mexican neuroscientist who refused to accept the sterile boundaries of materialism. Grinberg asked a dangerous question. What if consciousness is not generated by the brain, but fundamental to reality itself? He called his model the neuronal field, a matrix of information and energy that underlies matter, a field that connects all minds and all events beyond space and time. Through years of experimentation, he gathered evidence that thoughts and emotions are not confined to the skull but ripple outward, shaping patterns in this field. He observed that meditators in deep states could measurably alter the coherence of their surroundings, shifting quantum randomness into ordered patterns. Random number generators bent in response to human intention, chaotic systems synchronized under the influence of focused awareness. Consciousness was not simply perceiving. It was organizing reality. More astonishing still, Grimberg documented phenomena that shattered linear time. In controlled settings, he found that human consciousness could influence events before they even occurred. Meditators altered the output of random systems minutes before those systems were activated. The effect flowed backward, as if intention rippled across timelines. This phenomenon he called syntropia, a reversal of entropy, a tendency of consciousness to create order even retroactively. Consider what this means. A synchronicity may not be guidance from outside, but from your own future self, sending signals backward to the field to align your path. The uncanny timing, the precise appearance of opportunity, the warning disguised as coincidence. These may be echoes from the timeline where you have already resolved your challenge, reaching back to assist you now. Grimberg also revealed that human minds are not isolated units. In his laboratory, he connected pairs of individuals emotionally bonded, friends, lovers, family members, and measured their brain activity while they were separated by distance. When one was exposed to a flashing light, the other's brain mirrored the exact pattern of firing. Even miles away, no physical channel, no signal, just instantaneous entanglement. This was a human form of quantum entanglement. Not particles but people, not electrons but minds, demonstrating that consciousness weaves invisible networks across space. To be connected with another is to share a field of awareness. This explains the uncanny synchronicities between those close to you, the simultaneous thoughts, the perfectly timed messages, the shared dreams. These are not accidents, but manifestations of the neuronal field linking your awareness. And yet, just as his discoveries threatened to transform science, Grimberg vanished. In 1994, he disappeared without trace. No body, no explanation, no closure. Some say it was abduction, others claim exile, others whisper silencing. But the work he left behind remains a map to the deeper truth. Consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. It is the force that shapes it. Michael Talbot built upon this vision with his book, The Holographic Universe. He proposed that the cosmos itself is structured as a hologram, an image where every fragment contains a whole. Break a holographic plate into pieces, and each shard still holds the entire image, only less clearly. In the same way, each moment, each mind, each particle contains a pattern of the entire universe. Separation is only apparent. Underneath, all is whole. In a holographic universe, synchronicity ceases to be mysterious. Of course, distant events connect meaningfully. They are facets of the same hologram. Of course, inner and outer worlds mirror each other. They are not different layers, but the same pattern reflected. Of course, the improbable converges precisely. Probability itself is only the surface of a deeper order. The holographic model dissolves the rigid laws of classical physics into a field of resonance. Space and time lose their tyranny. What looks like cause and effect becomes secondary to vibrational alignment. Each thought, each emotion, each act resonates through the holographic field, and the field responds with experiences that mirror the frequency. Negative synchronicities, repeated obstacles, toxic cycles, patterns of scarcity, are not punishments but feedback. They reveal the dissonance of inner chaos mirrored in outer experience. Positive synchronicities, breakthroughs, opportunities, luminous encounters, are the harmonics of coherence, reflections of inner states of love, gratitude, clarity. Life becomes a precise feedback system, revealing at every moment the frequency you embody. This is why synchronicity is not anomaly, but law. Just as gravity pulls objects to Earth regardless of belief, the vibrational field aligns external events with internal states regardless of awareness. The difference lies in recognition. Most people, blind to the process, call it luck, chance, accident. But those who see know better. They navigate by synchronicity, as sailors once navigated by stars. And the implications reach beyond the personal. If reality is holographic, then every fragment, every being, every cell, every moment contains the whole. To harm another is to harm oneself. To heal oneself is to heal the field. Synchronicity becomes not only guidance but ethical compass, reminding us that separation is illusion and resonance is truth. This knowledge terrifies the guardians of the old paradigm. A holographic universe where consciousness shapes matter cannot be controlled through fear or scarcity. A humanity aware of its resonance cannot be enslaved by materialism. To suppress synchronicity is to preserve power. To awaken to it is to dissolve it. And so Grinberg disappeared. Talbot's ideas were marginalized. Research was buried, ridiculed, starved of funding. But the evidence remains, and the experiences of millions confirm what cannot be erased. Synchronicity is real. Consciousness is fundamental. The universe is holographic. Every time you experience an uncanny convergence, you are brushing against this truth. Every time the world mirrors your inner state with perfect timing, you are seeing the holographic field at work. Every synchronicity is a fragment of the hologram flashing the whole. You are not a separate observer looking out at a dead machine. You are a node of consciousness within a living field, shaping and shaped by the patterns you embody. The neuronal field, the holographic cosmos, the entangled web, these are not abstractions. They are your lived reality, disguised by the illusion of chance. And as you recognize it, the disguise begins to fall. If synchronicity is the operating system of reality, then it must have a language, a way of speaking across the boundary between the seen and the unseen. This language is not written in letters or spoken in words, but encoded in symbols, patterns, and alignments that carry meaning beyond logic. It is a universe whispering in numbers, animals, dreams, archetypes, even to the very technologies humanity has created. Numbers are often the most obvious entry point. You glance at a clock and see 1111, then notice the same sequence on receipts, license plates, addresses. You see 222 repeating, 333 appearing, just when you ask for confirmation. Skeptics call it pattern recognition, the brain's bias for repetition. But what they miss is the felt quality, the sense of timing too precise to dismiss, the recognition that the numbers arrive exactly when you need reassurance, guidance, or warning. Each sequence carries its vibration. 111, an opening, a quickening of manifestation. Thoughts crystallizing into form with unusual speed. 222, a message of alignment, a reassurance that the path you have chosen, though uncertain, is supported. 333, the resonance of support from unseen dimensions of consciousness, a confirmation that you are not alone. The precise meanings may vary, but the principle is the same. Numbers become access points, bridges between personal consciousness and the holographic field. Animals speak the same language. A hawk circling overhead as you wrestle with a decision is not random. A butterfly landing on your hand during a season of transformation is not meaningless. Each animal carries an archetypal vibration, accumulated to millennia of human encounter. The snake signals renewal and the shedding of old skins. The owl signals wisdom hidden in shadow. The deer signals gentleness, the fox cunning, the lion courage. These appearances are not hallucinations of meaning, but resonant expressions of synchronicity, the field mirroring your inner process through the outer world. Dreams are another dialect of this language. In sleep, when the filters of waking mind relax, the holographic field becomes more directly accessible. You dream of an event that later unfolds in waking life. Not because you predicted the future, but because in dream you slip beyond the linear sequence of time into a field where all possibilities coexist. Prophetic dreams are not fantasy, but synchronistic communication, glimpses of threads woven ahead of you, and deeper still are the archetypes. These are the universal patterns of meaning that appear across cultures and epics, encoded in myth, story, and symbol. The hero's journey, the wise teacher, the shadow, the guardian at the threshold. These archetypes are not inventions of imagination, but fundamental currents of the collective field. When an archetype manifests in your life through encounters, challenges, or opportunities, it is synchronicity guiding your evolution. The mentor appears when you are ready to grow. The shadow arises when it is time to integrate what you have denied. The threshold appears when you are poised across into new territory. Archetypes are the deeper structure of the universe's symbolic language, recurring motifs in the dialogue between consciousness and reality. Symbols are the bridges, connecting the explicit to the implicit, the conscious to the unconscious. They compress multidimensional meaning into images, numbers, events. This is why synchronicities often feel electric. You recognize them not with logic, but with a sensation, an almost physical click of resonance. Michael Talbot described this as the holographic trigger, an instant synchronization between your awareness and a universal field. You don't have to analyze it, you simply know. Even technology has become a medium for this language. In a world woven with algorithms and digital networks, synchronicity has adapted. You think of a friend and a message arrives. You wonder about a question, and a video surfaces with the exact answer. You shuffle music, and the perfect song plays at the perfect moment. Skeptics insist it is data-driven coincidence. But the deeper truth is that consciousness threads itself even through machines. Algorithms are pattern recognition systems, and the universe itself operates on patterns. The two overlap, allowing synchronicity to flow through the digital as easily as through the natural. Consider the phenomenon of digital twin flames. Two people who, though distant, experience uncanny synchronicities through online interaction. They post the same thought simultaneously, experience the same glitch at the same moment, find themselves drawn into the same digital spaces without planning. These are not accidents of bandwidth. They are extensions of the same entanglement that connects particles and minds. The internet itself has become a nervous system for the collective, a new surface upon which synchronicity writes its messages. This should not surprise us. Consciousness adapts its communication to whatever structures exist. In the age of temples, synchronicity spoke through stone and symbol. In the age of shamanic fires, it spoke through animals and omens. In the age of digital networks, it speaks through algorithms and screens. The medium changes, but the principle is eternal. Nothing is random, and meaning is a true code of reality. And always, the key is attention. Most people miss a language not because it is absent, but because they are conditioned not to look. From childhood, you were trained to dismiss the uncanny, to laugh off the improbable, to call the meaningful coincidence just chance. This dismissal is the lock. Attention is the key. The moment you begin to pay attention, the language reveals itself. Start to notice the patterns, numbers that repeat, animals that cross your path at significant times, dreams that echo waking life, archetypes that emerge in your relationships, messages that arrive through screens with impossible precision. Do not rush to interpret. Simply record, observe, pay attention. Over time, a personal lexicon will emerge, a unique symbolic vocabulary through which the universe speaks to you. Because though there are universal symbols, the most profound meanings are personal. A crow may signal transformation for one person and warning for another, depending on the thread of their life. A number may mean awakening to one and completion to another. The field speaks in archetypes, but also speaks in your personal resonance, shaped by your own history, associations, and path. Authentic synchronicity carries a distinct signature. It is not forced interpretation or wishful projection. It arrives with surprise, precision, and resonance. It often carries that unmistakable sensation, that click of recognition deeper than thought. It feels as if reality itself winked at you, broke character, revealed a hidden hand behind the curtain. The more you listen, the more fluent you become. The more fluent you become, the more directly the universe communicates. The dialogue deepens, the messages sharpen, the patterns align. Eventually, life itself becomes an oracle, each moment another phrase in the cosmic language. And in this recognition, something shifts irreversibly. You no longer walk through a mute world. You walk through a cathedral of symbols, every event a glyph, every coincidence a sentence in the great conversation. The universe speaks, and you finally begin to hear. To recognize the language of synchronicity is one thing. To live in harmony with it is another. Recognition awakens you. Alignment transforms you. Because synchronicity is not a rare anomaly that visits your life by accident. It is a constant feedback of the universe, a mirror reflecting the frequencies you maintain within. Every thought, every emotion, every state of being is vibration. It radiates outward, not metaphorically, but as measurable fields of energy. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field 60 times more powerful than the brain, detectable meters beyond the body. That field shifts with every feeling. Fear scatters it into chaos. Gratitude harmonizes it into coherence. And the universe, holographic and resonant, responds in kind. Negative synchronicities, obstacles repeating, relationships fracturing, opportunities collapsing, are not punishments but mirrors. They reveal the dissonance of your inner field, the frequencies of scarcity, anger, or doubt replayed in external form. Positive synchronicities, chance encounters that open doors, resources arriving exactly when needed, creative breakthroughs flowing effortlessly, are mirrors as well. They reflect coherence, clarity, expansion. Life is not testing you. It is showing you yourself. To live aligned with synchronicity is to take responsibility for the state you carry. Not responsibility as guilt or blame, but as creative power. You recognize that the source of your experience is not external circumstance, but internal vibration. The shift begins within. Change your state, and the field rearranges itself to match. This is why willpower alone often fails. You push, strive, force outcomes, but if the inner frequency is dissonant, the field mirrors only resistance. Alignment is not effort, but attunement. It is the quiet shift of resonance, the cultivation of inner coherence that makes external events fall into place without strain. Gratitude is not sentimentality here, but technology to generate authentic gratitude. Even for small details, reconfigures a heart's field into coherence. That coherence ripples through the neuronal field, the holographic matrix, drawing into your life experiences that harmonize with it. Gratitude tunes you to the channel where solutions, opportunities, and connections already exist. Love, compassion, presence. These states amplify the signal, widening the field of possibility accessible to you. And when fear returns, as it will, the task is not to suppress it, but to observe it as feedback. Fear synchronicities appear as closed doors, missed chances, repeated patterns of scarcity. These are not curses, but signals, the field reflecting the vibration carried within. Awareness itself begins a shift. The moment you see the mirror, you regain choice. Relationships are among the clearest mirrors. Every person who enters your life is synchronistic, a precise reflection of your internal field. Supportive companions mirror your coherence. Difficult ones mirror your unresolved patterns. The partner who controls reflects your own fear of surrender. The friend who deceives reflects the places you deceive yourself. The mentor who uplifts mirrors your readiness to step into power. To live aligned is to read these relationships not as accidents, but as synchronistic arrangements. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And instead ask, what aspect of myself is this reflecting? What lesson is this arrangement guiding me toward? Conflict becomes feedback. Connection becomes confirmation. Relationship becomes oracle. Even family is synchronistic. The parents you chose, the siblings you clash with, the children who arrive with their distinct challenges, all are arrangements designed to trigger growth. Souls weaving together to catalyze one another. No accident, no randomness. The field orchestrates every bond with precision. To recognize this is to step out of victimhood and into alignment. Decision-making also transforms. Logic calculates, compares, projects. Alignment listens, notices, follows the flow of synchronicity. The path of synchronicity may not be the easiest or the most logical, but it reveals itself through symbols, coincidences, inner resonance. Doors open unexpectedly. Messages arrive at the right moment. Guidance appears in dreams. The universe leaves a trail, and alignment is a courage to follow it even when it defies convention. There is a sensation that accompanies aligned choices, a feeling of lightness, an internal click, the absence of resistance. And there are sensations that accompany misalignment, heaviness, repeated obstacles, doors closing no matter how hard you push. These are not punishments. They are the field guiding you back to coherence. To cultivate alignment, practice stillness. A hyperactive mind, racing with plans and judgments, filters out the subtle signals of synchronicity. In stillness, meditation, breath, immersion in nature, the filters relax. The signals surface. You notice the hawk circling, the number repeating, the dream echoing waking life. Attention sharpens. The language grows clear. Documenting these moments amplifies them. A synchronicity journal is more than a record. It is a declaration of attention. Each entry carves new neural pathways, training the brain to notice what conditioning trained it to ignore. Over time, the pattern emerges. You see how the field communicates specifically with you, how your personal lexicon of symbols forms. The dialogue deepens, personalizes. You develop fluency in the language of your life. And as fluency grows, so does flow. Synchronicities increase in frequency and clarity. Life organizes itself around you with uncanny precision. Resources appear, opportunities align, connections converge. Obstacles dissolve not through force, but through resonance. It is as if the entire universe is conspiring to support your path. Because it is. This is why some people seem to move effortlessly through life, while others struggle despite endless effort. It is not luck. It is alignment. Those who live in resonance with synchronicity attract support without seeking it. Those who resist their own vibration find resistance reflected everywhere. The universe is impartial. It mirrors exactly what you are. To live aligned is to accept this mirror with humility and power. You stop blaming external forces. Stop waiting for chance. Stop resenting obstacles. You see the mirror. You adjust the inner state. The outer shifts accordingly. This is the quiet revolution of synchronicity, not changing the world by force, but by frequency. And the revolution is not merely personal. Alignment ripples outward. Your coherent field influences others. Your gratitude uplifts their frequency. Your clarity sharpens their awareness. Synchronicity spreads, entangling groups, communities, networks. Collective alignment reshapes entire fields of possibility. This is why awakened individuals are so dangerous to systems of control. Their coherence cannot be contained, and it spreads like resonance through a web of strings. Living in alignment with synchronicity is not about perfection. It is about participation. It is about listening to the feedback, adjusting your vibration, following the trail of meaning. It is about walking through life not as a victim of accidents, but as a navigator of resonance. And when you do, the world transforms. The same streets, the same people, the same days become unrecognizable. Signs appear where before you saw noise. Guidance arrives where before you saw silence. Every moment becomes alive with dialogue. Every choice an opportunity to align. Every relationship a mirror. Every event a message. Synchronicity ceases to be an anomaly. It becomes a way of life. To see synchronicity is to awaken. To live by it is to align. But to embody it fully is to become free. And freedom, in this sense, is more radical than any political emancipation, more dangerous than any weapon, more subversive than any ideology. It is a freedom of a being who recognizes that nothing happens by accident, that every moment is meaning crystallized, that reality itself is participatory and responsive. Such a being cannot be controlled, not by propaganda, because they know fear only creates more fear, not by scarcity, because they understand abundance is resonance, not possession, not by manipulation, because every encounter is seen as a mirror, not an imposition. A human fully awake to synchronicity is immune to systems that depend on ignorance, obedience, and separation. This is why the knowledge has been hidden for so long, not because evidence is lacking, but because its implications are revolutionary. If each thought, emotion, and intention vibrates through the universal field, then every individual wields creative power. Authority based on external control collapses. Responsibility shifts inward. The true governance of life becomes frequency, not force. This responsibility is not burden, but liberation. You are no longer at the mercy of accident. You are no longer a victim of chance. You are a participant in the weaving of reality, a co-creator with the universe itself. Every synchronicity is not just a message, but an invitation to recognize your role in the dance. The ethical dimension of this recognition cannot be overstated. In a synchronistic universe, what you project returns amplified. Fear breeds fearful experiences. Love breeds harmonious ones. To act with integrity is not obedience to external rules, but resonance with the understanding that you live in a holographic field. What you infuse into the field, you inevitably encounter again. To harm is to harm yourself. To uplift is to uplift yourself. This is a natural morality of resonance, far deeper than imposed codes. From this perspective, even suffering changes its meaning. Recurring obstacles are no longer curses, but feedback. Destructive relationships are not punishments, but reflections of unhealed patterns. Scarcity is not fate, but the echo of inner belief. The synchronistic field is not cruel, it is precise. It reveals exactly where the inner state misaligns. Often the chances shift. What looks like misfortune is often the most direct path to transformation. Relationships become central in this revolution. Every person you meet is a synchronistic arrangement, reflecting aspect of yourself. The lover who wounds you, the mentor who uplifts you, the adversary who resists you. Each is a mirror. Once you understand this, blame dissolves, victimhood dissolves. You begin to ask not, why did they do this to me, but what part of me is this showing me? What is this encounter teaching me about my own field? This question changes everything. Conflict becomes opportunity. Pain becomes integration. Connection becomes revelation. The same applies to society at large. Collective synchronicities reveal the state of humanity's field. Wars, crises, divisions are reflections of collective fear, separation, and unhealed trauma. Breakthroughs, movements, awakenings are reflections of collective coherence, vision, and alignment. To heal oneself is not escapism, but participation in the healing of the whole. Because in a holographic universe, every shift within ripples outward. And then there is creation itself. When you understand synchronicity, manifestation is no longer a mystical secret, but a natural process. You shift your vibration and the field mirrors it. You align with gratitude and opportunities appear. You embody abundance and resources converge. You live love and relationships harmonize. You do not force, you resonate. Creation becomes effortless, not because it requires no action, but because action is guided, supported, synchronized. This is what visionaries, artists, innovators have always intuited. They spoke of intuition, of inspiration, of doors opening in impossible ways. They were not lucky. They were aligned. They followed synchronicity, trusted the signals, moved with the flow of resonance rather than against it. And the world called them geniuses, when in truth they were listeners, fluent in the language of the field. The revolution of synchronicity is not loud. It does not storm palaces or topple governments. It transforms silently from within. A person begins to notice patterns. They shift their vibration. Their life reorganizes. They inspire others whose fields shift in resonance. The ripple spreads through families, communities, networks. Control systems weaken, not because they were attacked, but because coherence cannot be controlled. The old paradigm crumbles quietly, replaced by resonance. And yet, the choice remains. Awareness is not forced. Synchronicities appear for everyone, but not all see them. Some dismiss them as chance, cling to the story of randomness, remain trapped in the illusion of separation. Others notice. Pay attention, listen. For them, the veil thins, the dialogue opens, the freedom grows. The universe never withholds. It only waits for recognition. Nothing has ever been random. Every encounter, every obstacle, every opportunity, every so-called coincidence has been part of the dialogue. You are not placed in a mute machine, but in a living field, a holographic web humming with intelligence. The question is not whether synchronicity exists. It is whether you choose to recognize it. Once you do, the world changes irreversibly. The street you walk is no longer empty pavement, but a stage of symbols. The stranger you meet is no longer random, but a messenger. The dream you dream is no longer fantasy, but guidance. The numbers you notice are no longer trivial, but codes. Every moment speaks. Every event resonates. Every coincidence reveals a hidden order. And in this recognition, you are reborn, not as a pawn of chance, not as a victim of probability, but as a co-creator with the universe. You understand that you were never separate, never isolated, never powerless. You are always woven into the holographic whole, always entangled with the field, always capable of shaping reality through the resonance you carry. The final illusion dissolves, that you are small. You are not small. You are the universe experiencing itself through the singular lens of your consciousness. Synchronicities are the reminders, the glimmers, the cracks in the illusion, the signals that call you back to remembrance. And now you have seen. Now you know. The universe is not silent. It has been speaking all along. The question that remains is not whether it communicates, but whether you will answer